Thomas! It's up for grabs now!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it!
Fabulous solo goal by Thierry Henry.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Arsenal Lounge. I'm sure this is going to be quite heated today in the chats and in here, perhaps. Before we go into everything, though, let's say hello to our usual panelists. Mo, how you doing? Lovely top, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's beautiful. Oh, man, how am I doing? Just conflicted, man. Really conflicted. You know, on one hand, I'm like scared looking over my shoulder, really annoyed because of everything that's happened this weekend. On the other hand, I'm like, no, we're still a really good team and we can do this. And let's not get into crisis mode and all that sort of stuff. So we'll talk about it a lot more. But I think I need people in the comments today to tell me it's going to be all right. I need you guys to help me out because, yeah, it's starting to feel like it's going wrong.
Sounds like Mo's going to need a hug. So you guys in the chats, I'll see you all starting to come in now. Get your kind words and uplifting words ready for Mo. And Tom, how you doing, mate? A little bit darker in there than usual, a bit romantic tonight.
Turn the light on. It's as simple as that, really. But yeah, no, I was just starting to work with that level of light. Like, is this too bright and then it's too dark? I don't know.
You're coming out with a Lee Mason type excuses already. You forgot to turn the light on. You forgot.
Yeah, hold on. I'll sort that out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. That was Tom Canton, everyone. Thank you for coming, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
There you go.
All right, so look, there's plenty to unravel today. I'm going to try and keep it as light-hearted as possible. But let's just go, well, before we do, actually, those who are sort of being affected by the earthquake as well, I've got friends and family and people in from Turkey and in Syria. If those of you who've been affected or your families have been affected by the earthquake, our prayers go out to you guys. And I hope, you know, you're all safe and well and getting the help that you need. I'm sure the guys here will second that. But anyway, moving on. Right, getting into it all. So we'll go straight into the Brentford game, really. It's the only place we can start. It's as painful as it is. So looking at the lineups, we were pretty much unchanged with Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Odegaard, Partey, Xhaka, Saka, and Ketia Martinelli. And Brentford had Raya, Aja, or Aja, I don't know how you pronounce that, Pinnock, me, Roeslev, Janelt, Norgard, Jensen, Henry, Tony, and Mbuemo up top. So that was the lineup. We went away earlier in the season, handled it well. We were looking forward to this game. We knew it was crucial to bounce back after the Everton situation when we lost at Goodison Park. And well, we know what the result was, but I don't want to get into the game too much myself. I'll start with Mo because I know you was there. Talk me through what you saw, Mo, in the game because I had to watch it from a stream. How did you feel about the game?
So overall, or the obvious one dominant talking point?
We'll go through the actual performance first before we go to the obvious. But let's look at the performance because we can't sort of negate that because it wasn't the best of performances and it is a little bit worrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's not coming as easy for Arsenal as it was earlier on in the season right now. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, we always knew this was going to happen because no team in Premier League history has gone and just had an easy 38 games. You'd always have a bit of a sticky patch. In fact, I saw a stat recently with one of the Man City 99-point seasons, whatever it might have been, where they had 4 fixtures where they like dropped some really easy points, won 1 out of 4 or something. They had a little spell where it just didn't go well for them. Arsenal might be in that spell now. But you know what really kind of annoys me is, and I will talk about the individuals and stuff, but it's exactly one of those games where you look back on it at the end of the season and you say, that was the game where we prove we're a title-winning team because even in the absence of playing well, we still managed to get the 3 points. And that's the narrative. That would be the story right now. That would have given us a lot more confidence as a fan base and as a team in terms of that belief of it not being our day, but just finding a way, had it not been for those pesky flipping officials. And overall, it's a tough one because we can definitely look at the game and say Arsenal weren't good enough. There were some players that were really below par. or we can turn around and just pin it all on the officials. But the reality is, like anything in life, it's a bit of both, isn't it? There's more than one contributing factor. Had Arsenal been at it, really been at it, then this would have been sort of a annoyance rather than the complete story of the game, what happened in that VAR room. But Saliba was poor, Zinchenko was poor, I don't think Partey was his usual level, Martinelli was poor, Nketiah didn't do enough, Ødegaard, a few good moments, but would have liked to have seen more from him. It was just not our best performance by a long stretch, and not just individuals, but tactically. I feel like our approach to the game, how we tried to break Brentford down, not enough variation. It was very easy for them to deal with, really played into their strengths. So a very, very frustrating day all round for me.
No, I'll have to agree with you on that. Tom, I mean, what do you think is going on right now with Arsenal in the sense of their performances? Is this a case of maybe the game against Everton, Sean Dyche sort of formation and his tactics? Is this something that's opened up to others now and they're looking at it and they're adopting this same tactic, which we're seemingly struggling with at the moment? And let's be honest, we've had it good most of the season. Changes have been made by opposing teams now. Actually, Thomas Frank from Brentford come up with something really interesting. He said it's become easier to set up against Arsenal due to their lack of rotation. So that was an interesting point. Obviously, now that everyone's getting used to the way we play and the players that are going to play, is that something that's perhaps catching up with Arteta? And does he now have to start looking at different ways to counter it? You're muted.
My bad.
You forgot. Did you forget to unmute?
You forgot, like Lee
forgot,
Mason. Just all the Lee Mason gags are coming up.
Lights, muting. It's not going well.
No.
No, I think the last two games, have kind of showed you two teams that are defensively, I say defensively very good. Of course, Everton had a new manager, and prior to that were shipping goals for fun, but have obviously been disciplined very quickly by Dyche. It's interesting to see, actually. I know this comment will be out of date almost immediately, but it'll be interesting to see how they do against Liverpool this evening. But I think that teams that now are sitting back and defending well obviously are having their joy against Arsenal, and teams that have come out and tried to play football against Arsenal have obviously been caught a lot more, and that's allowed Arsenal to get where they are this season. I think what Thomas Frank said about us being easier to play against because of that, I don't read too much into that, because I think if you asked any manager, is it easier to prepare for a team that uses the same 11 almost every week, I think 99 times over 100 they would say, yeah, of course. Like, if you can predict who's going to play and you know exactly how they're going to play, doesn't mean that you can always stop it, because they're often quality is overridingly too good to prevent that. And for much of the season, that has of course been the situation. I've watched back the whole performance. I had to listen to it through 5 Live at the time, because any kind of imagery I got of the game was like 2 minutes behind reality anyway. So I was kind of like, I'm just going to listen to it on the radio. And I've now watched back everything through Y-Scout. And I do think there's maybe a bit of an overreaction about the performance. I wouldn't necessarily describe it overridingly as poor. I think that contextually, you look at it as obviously a considerable, not as well as we've played throughout the course of this season, but we've been brilliant this season. Like, we've been really, really good. And I think that perhaps that context maybe makes this perception of this performance in particular lower than what we've seen. I don't think I've seen... It's difficult for me to describe it as poor when I've seen Arsenal finish 8th twice, and I look at those performances and I go, that's poor. Like, that was dreadful. So I thought that we were decent. I don't think we were good enough to get the points in this game, even though arguably, and we'll come on to the big talking point, that we should have got them anyway. But I don't think necessarily... And by the way, Brentford, before we scored, hadn't conceded for 6 hours. This is a team that are very good. They'd not lost a game since October in the league. Like, they're a very good side. And ultimately, we needed to be better and we need to show more variation. And that's where my criticism is of Arteta in particular, is that we lack variation. We lack the tools to unlock stubborn defences that have found a way to combat us. And I think that I feel bad for someone like Kieran Tierney, who's not getting any opportunity off the bench, and I think he would be useful. I feel bad that Vieira and arguably Trossard, even though he came off the bench, aren't getting chances sooner in the game. I think we had to wait until like the 81st minute until Vieira came on. And I just want to see greater proactiveness from Arteta in these moments to change the game in our favour. And I don't think he's done that enough. But we've not had to rotate for much this season. I think it's part of his management that he needs to develop and learn.
Okay. I mean, I hear what you're saying in the sense of our performance. I mean, maybe we are overreacting a little bit in regards to the quality of the performance. But the one thing that does stand out for me at the moment is defensively, we're not as solid as we appear to be earlier on in the season. And leading up to whatever transpired later on in the game, we can't deny that Brentford had 2 or 3 chances that they should have put away. And looking back at the Goodison Park performance, it was the same before we conceded. There was a couple of opportunities that were clear-cut. I think Doucouré was one of them. They missed a couple of sitters before scoring against us. So all that aside, is there something we should be concerned about in regards to the chances and our defensive stability at the moment? Mo, I'll start with you on this, because have you noticed anything different?
Well, I have. I do think that there's some players that aren't quite as good post-World Cup as they were pre-World Cup. So, that's always going to happen. Form is going to kind of not just be linear. It's going to go up and down a little bit. And the other thing is as well that I think is really important for us to remember as fans is that it's a young team. I remember many, many months ago saying it's a young team, so there's not going to be that robotic consistency. They will have ups and downs. And it's down to us as fans, actually, that will play a really big part in how this young team responds. So right now, William Saliba, he has not been that imperious defender that we were looking at, when he first came into the team and even earlier on this season. Actually, I would say by far Gabriel has been our best centre-back this season. I don't think many of us would have predicted that. I think, there was chat before about Gabriel maybe being a little bit error-prone and Saliba definitely being better. But right now, I'd say Gabriel's in the team of the season. And Saliba, I wouldn't put in the team of the season. Against Brentford, Saliba really got sort of bullied by Ivan Toney. Let's be honest about it. Aerial duels, he won 1 out of 9. And Ivan Toney was up at 86%. So Saliba's 9%, Ivan Toney 86%. And I think that lack of coping with that aerial battle led Saliba to do what he did for the goal, where he didn't even attempt to try and jump. He just was fouling Ivan Toney and didn't do very well in that duel, which obviously led to the goal, which is frustrating because then, I was annoyed at Saliba on the day, but then you look at that and the annoyance for Saliba compared to what the VAR official did is, not even comparable. So I think, there has been a bit of a drop off in some performances. Ben White, at right back, has done so well. He's not playing to exactly the same level as he was, still doing well, and he's not a natural right back. We have to cut him that slack as well. Martinelli, he's not, firing on all cylinders. So there has been a drop off, and I think we are seeing that in the fact that the games aren't being won or managed quite as comfortably, and the game management isn't, the best. I think what happened with Saliba and the way he gave away that free kick, Brentford were dominant aerially all game. The last thing you want to do within 10 minutes of scoring a really, really difficult opening goal to get is to give them easy free kicks, because that's what the whole game is going to be based on from an attacking sense, even though they did have chances in open play, Ivan Toney especially. There is definitely a difference, but best way to respond is against Man City. There's no bigger statement to make. So if we do that, all of these fears and these sorts of conversations will be nipped in the bud. So it's just 90 minutes that we need to be flawless on, but it needs to be significantly better than what we displayed against Everton or Brentford.
Interesting. I'd like to hear your take on that, Tom, and throwing into the equation as well the likes of Nketiah, who seem to really be struggling with this low block at the moment. I think when the one thing I've noticed, the big difference between the two up top with Jesus when he plays and Nketiah is the one thing Jesus can do in tight spaces is create out of nothing in tight games. He could cause issues, whereas Nketiah doesn't seem to be doing that if he doesn't have space in behind to run into? And is there a case as well, I'd like to add as well, that maybe we should be looking at bringing in Tierney on the left-hand side, maybe even bringing in Zinchenko into the middle? I mean, these are things we could be looking at, no?
Yeah, like, you need to always ask questions about whether or not you can make changes to the team. Look, I'll tackle them one by one. Nketiah first. I think he's been unfortunate in terms of the games that we played against Everton and then Brentford, that the service for him has just not been there, and he's not Gabriel Jesus. He's just not that player. And the expectation that he is going to do what Jesus does is ludicrous, because they're different players, they're different style of strikers, and that's why Gabriel Jesus, when we get him back, is going to be really important, especially in these types of games. But take nothing away from what Nketiah has done. Against Spurs, he was unbelievably good despite not scoring. Against Man United, 2 goals, which helped us to win that game. He scored more goals this season than Jesus has scored. So you can't really point the finger at Nketiah. I think it's more so you point the finger at the system about how it reacts to playing against these types of oppositions, that we have to, as a team, adapt. As a squad under the manager, adapt to these types of opponents. So I think it's harsh to say this player, that player, this player, because I think as a whole, we need to be better against these sides and work out what we're going to do when what we want to do and have done successfully throughout the season isn't working for us. The Tierney thing, I don't see any need to bring in Tierney from the start, but what I do think is that Arteta needs to be bringing him on in games where Martinelli or Trossard, whoever's on that left-hand side, is getting doubled up on a lot. And I think that you can take Xhaka for Tierney. You can move Zinchenko into midfield, as you've said, if you want to have that style of play. You could even play Tierney and Trossard and put Trossard where Xhaka is. Why don't go that more offensive-minded? Because then you've got someone like, I think there's a lot, and you're starting to see this come up a lot when Trossard gets older and he starts to lose that kind of immediate burst of pace. If you remember when Santi Cazorla first joined us, he started in a wide area. I know he played in midfield as well, but he actually played a lot in the wide area, because that's where he played at Villarreal as well, and Malaga. And I can see Trossard becoming a bit more like Santi-esque, where he moves into the middle, he's got that two-footedness, very tight, close control ball to his feet, and eventually he'll develop his passing game as his kind of wide wing play game starts to diminish as he grows into his latter years. And I think that we can start to use Trossard perhaps in that more inside role. And the frustration, I think, with Arteta is that there's too much like for like in the changes that he's making at the moment. And I want to see more change of system overall to tackle the challenges that we're facing. So, yeah. Was there one other player, Xhaka, you mentioned? I think Xhaka's been brilliant, this season. He's absolutely been one of the reasons why we are top of where we are. But there's a good argument that him and Zinchenko can do similar kind of jobs. And so if you're in a position where you can afford to sacrifice a player to go more attacking, it's probably got to be one of those two. And then the other one just takes on all the roles of what both of those players do. And I think both of them can do that. And I think Arteta has just got to have a little bit more faith in his other options, because I think he's very loyal to what he's got, a very Arsene Wenger-esque trait that he has. I think he just needs to be a bit more trusting of the other options that he's got and be a little bit more risk-taking in those moments.
No, I agree. I mean, one of the theories behind Martinelli's loss of form is Tierney not playing, because what Tierney does offer is the overlap that perhaps someone like Zinchenko doesn't offer, because he tucks in a bit more in central midfield, and that overlap gives the likes of Martinelli more options when he's pulling defenders out of position or distracting a defender and giving him another option. So that was the thought behind Tierney being involved and maybe dealing with the low block. Moving on to the obvious now, obviously the huge talking point in regards to VAR. And I'm going to be honest and say I watched it on some really hazy stream. I'm not going to say where, but I would have been better off probably watching it, listening to it on the radio like Tom did. But it wasn't till after, when the pictures started to sort of come up on social media and the obviousness of the offside where then I started to become infuriated because this is not the first time it's happened to us. And we could sit here and we've constantly said, look, we can't be conspiracy theorists and this, that, and the other. But look, it's happened once before. We had a terrible decision go against us. I think it was at St Mary's, wasn't it? When Jesus was clean through and he was pulled down and nothing was given in it. And instead of being 2-0, it ended up 1-1, for example. There's loads of little examples, but this excuse is really riling me because you forgot to draw the lines. What does anybody here think when you think about VAR and you have an potential offside decision? What do we see more than anything else in VAR? We look for the lines, right? So Mo, I'll start with you. Lee Mason, a guy from Manchester, by the way, a Manchester official, and the penultimate game before we're playing Man City in a huge, what is some are saying it's the title decider, make or break. We've lost 2 points due to somebody forgetting to do their job. What's that feel like as an excuse for you, Mo?
The fact that he's from Manchester, we don't need to speak about that because instead of focusing on potential issues, which I'm not saying whether I agree or not, let's talk about what we absolutely 100% know, that this flipping brain dead moment of his, this absolute display of sheer incompetence. It's staggering, absolutely staggering. I just cannot believe that this has come out, that he's forgotten. It's so flipping ridiculous that if that was me, honestly, I would have just said, look, let's just say it's malfunctioned because it's so embarrassing.
Do you believe he forgot, Mo? Can anyone in the chats as well, I'm asking you guys, is it feasible to believe that the one job that you have to do as an official, which is to look at these things and decide if something's offside, and then the tool you have to do it is the lines, there is nothing else you can use. Is it feasible to accept that as an excuse that you forgot?
Well, obviously not, but you're asking me if I believe it, right? Now,
yeah, do you believe it?
So I'll ask you the question, right? What the hell must be going on in the world of football secretly if what you're suggesting that it's not actually just the fact that he forgot it? What weird under the covers activities must be going on for Lee Mason to agree to let this get out there that he forgot? How does that happen? What secret meetings have taken place? What conspiracy is going on for him to say, yeah, okay, fine, I'll be that guy? It doesn't stack up for me. Do you know what I mean? It seems a little bit too out there, a little bit too over the top to suggest that there's a conspiracy. But I don't blame people for having that conversation.
If I came to you and said to you, Mo, in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months, someone's going to come out on VAR from the officials and say, I forgot to use the line, and that's going to be the excuse, would you have believed that would happen?
Obviously not. And that's why, if people do say the conspiracy thing, I don't just completely say no, you're crazy, because it's that flipping ridiculous. It's really, really that crazy. And even, was it, I can't remember who it was, but, oh no, it was Henry Winter, I think it was, who was talking about this. He wrote an article, and he in that he said it's not a conspiracy, it's incompetence. Just the fact that people now are talking about, it's just the normal part of the conversation on this, as to having to address the fact that it's not a conspiracy, tells you how crazy this was, speaks volumes about how unbelievably bad of an error it was. So mind-bogglingly bad that we're having to just put it out there that, no, I don't think it's a conspiracy, because it's conspiracy worthy. That's how incompetent it is. So whether it's it would almost be better if it was a conspiracy, because you'd be like, oh, right, they're not idiots. They're devious, but they're not idiots. It's kind of more worrying, because with a conspiracy, you can find out, you can take action, you can nip it in the bud. With this, it just continues. every single week. Brighton have got an apology. Arsenal have got an apology. There's been so many stupid things. Even like, one thing we're not even talking about? Last 10 minutes, Saliba goes out for a header, has his shirt pulled. No one's even talking about it. Tom, you watched the game back in full, so you might remember it. But, I mean, that in itself, I mean, this is what I'm talking about in terms of the levels of how bad the officiating is. That in itself...
It wasn't even a free kick to start with. Like, it wasn't a free kick in the instance that they got the kick into the box, which led to the goal. It wasn't a foul for me.
From where I was in the North Bank, I thought it was. But I thought Saliba had his hands all over him. But in any case, the penalty where Saliba had his shirt pulled, not a single Arsenal fan is even speaking about that, because that error pales in comparison to the other error. I was saying about this error that this is one of those ones that will go down in Premier League folklore. So you remember when Liverpool conceded a goal against Sunderland that hit a beach ball and went in? Yeah, you don't forget about that, because it was so ridiculous, so absolutely mad that it goes down in history and stays with you. This is that, as far as I'm concerned.
The Man United one against Spurs that clearly went over the line.
Yeah.
There's that one as well.
Exactly. So like these moments when you reference them, everyone's like, oh yeah, I remember that. This is one of those. And these moments in the best league in the world, as we always say, these moments at a professional standard should be moments that belong to players, no one else. The fact that this moment has gone down for an official is just unbelievable. I'm so annoyed by it. But it's the lack of accountability that bothers me.
Yeah.
If I did something like this at work, if I turn up to work with no trousers and say, oh, I forgot,
I didn't need that image, Mo.
It's just crazy. So where is the accountability? Now, the Brighton official, he has been stood down for a couple of weeks or something, then he'll be back at it. There needs to be more accountability. You know how like in players' contracts, if you get promoted, you get a percentage increase on your salary. If you get demoted, you get a percentage decrease to your salary. It needs to be like this for officials. There needs to be a relegation and promotion. The officials have such a massive impact that I'd actually like to see a league table.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea, Mo. A performance league table.
Absolutely.
Because then there's accountability. No one wants to be at the bottom, do they?
But the problem with that is that, you imagine Arsenal are playing Man City on Wednesday and we've got the referee who's bottom of the referees league table. We'd all be going crazy and it would attract loads of criticism. So I understand they've got to be very tactful about what they do and how they do it, but something needs to change. At a bare minimum, let's get them mic'd up. At the bare minimum.
Do you know what? I've always been a fan of that.
Yeah. And then secondly, let's get them... Let's have all of this shown on what they're doing. Let's have it shown on the screens, because when there's more sort of like, standards get raised when that there's more riding on it and everyone's watching. You're not just kind of like isolated, working siloed in a room. You'd be like, I've got to really make sure I get this right. And then thirdly, interviews after the game. Let's have the officials speak about what they've done and what they haven't done. I'm sure that these things will drive standards up, because, the last thing you'd want to do is make an error where you're mic'd up, people are hearing you, people are seeing what you're doing, and then you have to go and explain yourself after the game. I'm sure these things, the accountability, the pressure it will bring will weed out the weak performers from the best performers. And hopefully that can be a start.
I agree with it, and Tom, I'll bring this over to you now. Hear your thoughts on it. I mean, it's been this has been sort of touted for a long time. Referees coming out and speaking up and saying their piece and being held accountable. We've heard all of this. Apparently, them going professional was going to solve all of the issues that we had in our refereeing game. Doesn't seem to have happened. VAR has been brought in to avoid such things. VAR, I keep saying, is not the issue. VAR is the technology. It can't be wrong, but humans can be wrong. And in this day and age, should we be putting such decisions in the hands of humans who can make these errors or be biased in any shape or way or form? Or with today's AI technology, could we simply just get the computer to make decisions for us? Thoughts?
Well, the technology is there. We've got the semi-offsides that are being used at the moment in the Champions League and were used in the World Cup. Like, we should be implementing that. People will say that you have to wait until the end of the season. I say no. As soon as you've got something that improves the legitimacy and the validity of the game, implement it, use it. So that's there. The semi-offside solves that problem that we had immediately. So bring it in for next week if you can do that. I know that there might be some grounds where there isn't enough cameras, let's say. But for the grounds that have them, bring it in. You can't argue to me that the authorities can turn around and say that, we can't have it at some grounds and then have it at others, because you do that in the FA Cup already with VAR. So, there are games that have VAR and there are games that don't in the same round of the competition, depending on which ground you play at. So I can't buy into that. But at a ground like the Emirates, you can have that semi-automatic system. So that should be brought in my opinion, as soon as possible. On this situation, Mo's obviously summed up the majority of it as is. And I don't disagree with anything that he said. For me, there is such a big thing to be said about the catchment area of where referees in the Premier League are taken from. There is a massive discussion to be had about the variety of backgrounds associated with the group of referees that we have at the elite level. And this isn't me just saying we need someone with a different skin color who should be refereeing. That's not what this argument is about. This argument is about opening this up to different backgrounds, diversities, cultures, because when you do that, you get yourself the best of every single possible human being that can have their go at refereeing. And that then gets you the best possible results. That's what I'm talking about here. So before people say it's not about ticking a box, it's not about that. It's about giving yourselves as a sport the best possible opportunity to have access to the best possible people who can get involved with this specific role in the game. And I think that what's also important to talk about is the accountability that needs to be implemented. Now, some people have turned around and said that Lee Mason should be sacked, or this person should be sacked. For me, I think that goes one step beyond what we want to achieve, which is accountability. Some people say, well, if he's sacked, he's been held accountable and he's lost his job. For me, that's not the way forwards, because I want the referees in a position where they know that they're going to be held accountable for their actions, but not playing off of fear of their jobs being lost. I want them in a position where there is a league table for every single division in the English Premier League through to the Football League. And so at the end of it, let's say every quarter of the season, the bottom three performing referees will go down to the Championship, and the top three performing referees in the Championship will come up to the Premier League. And you have got to perform to the top level to maintain your position in the top league, to referee at the top level. And those that are in the top three, let's say, of the Premier League, they're the guys that will go off and referee in the Champions League and in the World Cup. Those are the referees that will be selected to represent England at those, or not even England, but Britain, or whatever you want to describe it as, at those competitions. I'd also open it up to, I don't think the English Premier League should just be refereed by English referees. If this is the pinnacle of football, we should have the pinnacle of referees from around the world in this competition. We already have players from around the world coming to this league to play because we want to bring in the best talent. So why not open it up? I think Jared Gillett is brought in from Australia. Am I right in saying that? I think he came over from over Australia. So why not open it up even more in the sense and start, and the Premier League should be looking. I also think the PGMOL as an organisation should be pretty much scrubbed at this point. The Premier League should own the officials. The Premier League should be in charge of the officiating. It shouldn't be like that separate body. It should be part of the people that run the league. They need to have more control over that. And people can have their discussions about what the Premier League is like, I know. But for me, it being a separate... I also think that VAR and officials on the field should be separate. So I don't think that people that referee the games should be the people in the VAR booth. I think it should be specialists of VAR that look at video to assess decisions. It should be people that are specialists at that. And then the referees keep their side of things and they stay on the field. I don't think it should blend between the two.
Tom, Lee Mason is solely
retired.
A VAR official.
Yeah, he is.
So he is a VAR specialist.
Yeah.
And it's a weird one because, anytime VAR gets something wrong, people have the VAR debate. This is not about VAR at all. VAR gives you the tools to do the job. He forgot. He literally forgot. It's mad. What's crazy about this, right? We're in a world now with football where the rules are complex, the technology is complex. There's a lot of complexity to it all. Things have got to be done very quickly, or as quickly as it can be done, given the fact that it's done mid-game, whatever. And all of this that has led to this stupid error could have been solved with a little paper printout with a checklist on it. Can you believe that? Lee Mason, like with it written in crayon like this. Lee Mason, don't forget to do this.
The one job you're
all the
supposed to
lines,
do.
Tick, get your flipping red crayon, tick
The first thing they should check. The pass to the striker should be the first thing they check.
There's no other way of checking it, but other than we've seen these lines used for shoelace widths, right? Like ridiculous, anal. They've been ridiculously anal with these lines. We've got a blatant offside you could see with your own eyes. You don't need the lines, but they've forgotten to use them. I just listen. You guys know I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but for me, the excuse "I forgot" just does not wash with me. You cannot forget to do the one job that you've been hired to do live on television. Well, it wasn't live on television, but it's a huge fixture. So much riding on it. Surely you've got to be sorting that out.
So Lev, what are you saying? Are you saying that was done intentionally?
I find it crazier to believe that someone would forget than someone would premeditated, like in a premeditated fashion, just oops, I forgot. I think it's more feasible to me.
I think they're just bad. I just think they're bad.
Yeah,
bad.
Let me ask you.
I don't buy that.
It is crazy that they forgot, right? It's absolutely crazy that they forgot. Don't get me wrong, but like if we were going to talk to someone who's not an Arsenal fan or not a football fan, who's not really, really passionate about this, could they just turn around and say, really, really dumb, but people do forget things. I think, was it Man City that forgot to name all the available subs in the game against who did they play? Villa.
You're right. Pep Guardiola said it, didn't they? They forgot something.
Did they though?
Yeah. Then they went to the Premier League. Then they went to the Premier League, got a special exemption to go and add the player. So
okay.
Your point of did they though? If they didn't go and do that extra step and be like, oh, sorry, we forgot. Can we go and do this? You might think, oh, they did it intentionally.
Okay.
Might be sending a message to someone.
To counter that though, maybe like with the coaches and everything that you've got going on and loads of people involved and a whole squad, that's easier to forget something in amongst a whole heap of paperwork than it is when you're watching a game in real time and your only job is to decide whether a decision is correct or not. And in this case, it was offside. And all you've got to do is go, is it offside? How do I look at it? I've got two players here. All they look offside. What do I use what does everyone use in VAR to confirm offside? The line.
Yeah, the line. Listen, I want people in the comments to help me out here because I'm playing devil's advocate here. I find it ridiculous. So don't think for a second I'm like, no, mate, it's fair enough. I find it absolutely ridiculous and the key difference is because you are a professional. But someone could turn around and say, well, has no one ever forgotten their passport when they go to the airport, for example? It's the one thing you need, but people forget. I know that they're not professionals and you are a professional, so it is a big difference. But people in the comments, like, this has never happened before, as far as I know. Is it 1 in a million? Is that kind of a fair ratio for this to occur? Or is this just like mental?
This is a perfect
It was one of 3 big VAR things this weekend.
No, but forgot to draw the lines.
So look, Usain Bolt, 100 meters. It's in the Olympics, the final, 100-meter final. The race goes. Usain Bolt gets second, gets his silver, and then a couple of hours later, someone goes, "Oh, actually, Usain did win, but I forgot to use the line." Like, you just can't do that. It doesn't make any sense. It is hard to
comprehend.
All right. Well, let us know in the chats whether you think it is something suspicious or it's just ridiculous human error. Chris Foy came out and said, didn't fully investigate with the lines. It's a human error, he claims. I've never heard anything like it in all my life watching football. But very quickly, before we go on to the next subject, say a few hellos to some people in the chats. And please smack the likes. It helps the channel and it helps us with our content. So Perry, hello to you. Hugh, Earth Extremities, Matthew, Eddie. I think that's Is that Rizzy or RZI? Rizzy, Elliot, Tired, Exhaustion. All of you guys in here, Nick, the usual suspects, Ace, Lucas. Keep your comments coming. We do read them and have questions ready for later on if that's okay. So, look.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, go on.
Lev, you think as you do a lot of the questions that, and we talk, how much will this impact our title race? This one VAR decision.
Ask us on Wednesday, I guess. Wednesday. I mean, look, if we lose hold on. If we lose the league due to 1 point or 2 points, how would you feel after this decision?
I'd feel like it's been stolen from us. That's what I'd feel like. Yeah.
And what can we do about it? Like
nothing.
This is the frustrating thing for me. They've come out, they've apologized. There's no turning back. There's no getting points back. There's no replay. What is that apology worth to us? Like
nothing.
Nothing.
So if you guys were in charge now, right? If they came up to you and said, "Look, crazy mistake. We're really, really sorry. Sorry's not good enough. So you tell us, how would you like us to fix it?" What would you say?
It's very difficult. So, I mean, the only feasible thing, if two teams have drawn, the only feasible thing is to replay the game. But that's never going to happen.
The only feasible one would be to replay the game.
Yeah, because they both drew, so it was a 1-1. So you can't give points away. You can't do that, as Hugh has suggested in here.
Or you restart the game at that stage at 1-0, if you know what I mean. So you return to that stage. I know that fitness of players is affected because they'll be fresh, but that's the only way I can see it, is you replay it from that point.
It's a minefield, isn't it? Imagine they did that. They replayed the game or replayed it from that point, and then Ramsdale gets a serious injury, for example, or Thomas Partey gets a serious injury. Then we'd be flipping livid as well. I mean, because of this unbelievable mistake, they've made a massive issue for themselves. I just wonder, like, maybe the only way of putting it right is to say to Brentford, right, you retain the point because clearly you change all of your tactics at that point, and you wouldn't have done what you did had you not been given the goal. But Arsenal would give you 2 points. I don't know, like a million years. But
everybody
get one.
There's no guarantee we would have gone on to win the game. There's just so many permutations and variables. It's just nothing we can do about it. We're just going to have to suck it up.
An error that bad.
There's nothing we can do about it. And, there's everyone's coming up with all these different ideas. But, I mean, there were some crazy ones as well. Lemeno's sending off. That was crazy. I think Chelsea should have had a penalty as well against West Ham. That was crazy as well. It was a handball. Yeah. There was so many.
Yeah, I heard someone say that the Chelsea one was worse than the Arsenal one. No, it wasn't. Because with check there, you can at least understand that he's trying to break it forward.
Yeah.
Fine. Probably still a penalty. But, this one was mad.
Yeah, it's factually incorrect to suggest that. Yeah, factually incorrect. Yeah. There's not even an argument. Right? It's silly to even argue that point because there is debate about that, even though I think it's ridiculous as well. And I think it was blatantly a penalty. Yeah. Like, there's debate, but it's either offside or it's not. Like, it's black and white. Like, it's ridiculous to suggest that could be worse.
Ridiculous. Well, trying to put the conspiracy theories aside, although this will probably add to it, sets it up lovely for Wednesday for television and for viewers, doesn't it? Let's be honest here. Like, it wouldn't have been as tense and exciting had Arsenal got 3 points in the bag and still maintained some gap. So, perfect segue for this game, I guess. We've got this huge game coming up at the Emirates. Man City coming down to play us. They won on Sunday, but they obviously had a day's less rest than us, which I'm hoping could work in our favour. We've got a Haaland who's carrying a bit of a knock at the moment. Guys, I mean, I'll start with you, Tom, first. What do you see us doing? Do you see any changes? And how do you see this game going? Is it going to work in our favour in the sense of we won't have this low block problem because they've got to win. Let's be honest. They've got to come out and beat us. do we have to win, or is a draw enough? That's another question as well.
You're right in saying they have to win. To be honest, a draw is not a terrible result for either team. I don't think it's a terrible result for either side, because the gap between Arsenal and Man City is close enough that they would feel confident of beating us at the Etihad.
Yeah.
And I think 4 points from 6 for City, they'd look at that as very... So, I think if they draw, I think they'll look at a draw maybe slightly better than we would, even though we're leading, because I think they'll feel confident about beating us at their place. And perhaps over the course of the rest of this season as well, especially with the form Arsenal have recently been in. But don't get me wrong, both teams will be going to try and win this game, because a win is massive. Absolutely massive for both. City go top if they win this. Yes, we have a game in hand, but they go top. The psychological edge that gives you of just being, at the top of the table is priceless. Having that there, it has its benefits for momentum. It has its drawbacks in terms of pressure, of course, and we've felt that. But it is. I've built this as, for me, I think it's the most important Arsenal fixture of the last 10 years. I cannot think of a fixture, be that an FA Cup final or the Europa League final. I think this is a more important game in the context of Arsenal's modern history than those fixtures for me. We could talk about the ending of
the last game, Tom, that I felt we had of this magnitude was Tottenham away for Champions League qualification last season.
Yeah. And we completely bottled that game. Obviously, the context was very different, but we had a lot of players out injured, of course, as well. Yeah. But we go into this game knowing that the only player that we have missing, really, that we're starting is Jesus. They have a very strange setup where you don't really know who's going to play. Yeah. And that's the strength of their rotation. Guardiola was able to rest. He talked about an injury to Haaland. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I think that's a load of BS. He trained fine today. He'll be available for the game on Thursday. It's just mind games. They were able to rest him. They could bring on Alvarez, who in himself is a great player. They rested Ake. They rested Rico Lewis, who I think will also play. But don't get me wrong. I watched the Villa game and I thought Villa are dreadful. I hope they're that bad when we play them on Saturday. I tell you, I really hope they're that bad again. But City were vulnerable at times. Yeah. And Villa really wasted the spaces that opened up for them when they had the chances to go forwards. They were too slow in their build-up and they didn't play the ball quick enough into the wide areas. And City was certainly gettable. And I thought actually they were... Yeah, go on.
Only gettable when they were 3-0 up.
Yeah, of course. Of course, that's fair. I still thought there were moments in the first half where Villa could have been quicker in the build-up. The penalty is also a little bit here and there as well. And if it stays at 1-0 at that point, because I think that was the second goal, wasn't it? So if it stays...
I think it was third.
Was it the third one?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. If you go into the second half of 2-0 and Villa suddenly score like they did, it's obviously a very different game. So I think that there are... Obviously, as we know, City can be got at. They've already been got at by a number of teams this season. I thought we deserved to get more out of the game than when we went to Man City as well. The game was only separated by a very good finish from Nathan Ake, who's never scored with his right foot in his entire life, but he's managed to do it, and that's a fact, by the way. It's a very, very interesting game for the neutral. For the non-neutrals, it's terrifying. It's terrifyingly exciting. But I love the fact that Arsenal have elevated themselves into a position where we are looking at this game in the magnitude that it is. Because if you'd have said to me at the start of the season, all right, Tom, in February, you're going to go into play in Man City. You're going to be 3 points clear with a game in hand, with the opportunity, if you win that game in hand and this, to be 9 points clear. What an amazing opportunity Arsenal have given themselves this season. So, yeah, it's massive.
The really sad thing about this is that, after losing against Everton, it was so important for us to make a statement in terms of bouncing back because, everyone is expecting Arsenal to have a wobble and not just get through to the end of the season in that unbelievably pressurized. And this is one area that I think fans really overlook how difficult it becomes. It's not the same. The first 10 games are not the same as the last 10 games. It consumes you. It's all you can think about. So there's no release. There's no lifting of that pressure, lightening the mood. Every single thing is so important that it becomes very tough. And for a young squad, it's going to become even tougher. So we were always going to have a wobble. After that Everton game, we really needed to win. We desperately needed to win. So the fact that this crazy, once in a lifetime VAR debacle occurs after a really damaging defeat and before the top of the table clash is the worst timing that we could have possibly had. I'd rather this had come against Man City, because if it came against Man City, it'd be a case of, we went toe to toe and came out with a draw, and if it wasn't for them, we've proven we're better than them. We would have had that sort of moral victory and still got away with a draw. But against Brentford, it's definitely 2 points dropped that we needed to win. After the game, I said after the Brentford game, I said Man City's a must win, and actually I'll change that. It's a must not lose. The Man City game for Arsenal. It's an absolute must not lose. If we lose it, that's 2 defeats and a draw. 1 point out of 9 in our last 3 Premier League games. And before that, we lost to Man City in the FA Cup. So, we wouldn't have won a game in 4, and it starts to create panic. So we absolutely need to avoid defeat in this game to make sure that they don't close the gap on us.
Before we go on, Perry Nagbal is a regular. Thank you for your support, bro. He's saying we have a lack of creativity in midfield, bro. We should have gone for Houssem Aouar. Oh, God, that name's come back again. He was available at a low price and is still a class player. Come on, guys. I don't know about that. I mean, by the way, Mo, the way you broke down the whole VAR decision and the timing of it and all that jazz really did no favors in making me think any different to the actual conspiracy theory. Because come on, just before the Man City game and just after the loss at Goodison, it couldn't have been any worse timed. But Tom, how do you think we approach this game? Because the one thing we've seen with City is they struggle with the low block. I mean, look at how Tottenham played against City. Tottenham went and got spanked the following weekend against Leicester 4-1, right? But someone like Tottenham, who play the way they do, seem to give City a lot of issues. And look at the way we play. We play very similar style to City. Arteta's adopted this style. And again, teams have started to adopt a similar thing with us now. Low blocks, which we're struggling. How do we approach this game, in your opinion? Do we sit back knowing that maybe they're more desperate for the win or and try to counter them? Or is it just a toe-to-toe, in your opinion?
Look, I think this game's obviously suits us so much more than the last 2 games do, which seems mad when you think of it because we're playing our title challenges, but it does, because City are going to come out and attack us. They are going to open up spaces. And I think that if you look at, say, Eddie Nketiah as a player in particular who has struggled in these last 2 games, but you look at him against Spurs and you look at him against Manchester United, 2 teams that came out and tried to attack us a bit more, less so in Spurs' case, but certainly in Man United's case, he flourished. And there should be, I'm hopeful. And if I was a betting man, I would be putting money on Eddie Nketiah if we are to get a goal to be on the scoring list in this game, because the opportunities are going to be there, hopefully, for him in this fixture. I think Arteta's got a decision to make regarding the left side. And I think he's got a decision to make regarding Martinelli and Trossard, because when I went up to the Etihad to watch our game at the FA Cup, Trossard was the best player on the pitch for us. And he really, really gave that City defence a tough time in the first 45 minutes. He was quick, he was alert, he was incisive, direct, really turned the players inside out. I think he injured Stones at one point because he's turning them inside out so much. And there is a temptation for me to say, I think Trossard should start this game.
Yeah.
And, I think that Martinelli has dipped a bit. And I think that's not necessarily all down to him. I think it's more so down to the lack of Jesus being there. And I think he was really buoyed by Jesus' collaborativeness that he had and pulling out different players and positions and creating for him. But Trossard, I think, individually can do more than what Martinelli can do. Go on, Mark. I feel like you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, I am. Because I'm going to take exception to one thing that you said, right? About... And because a lot of people have said this, Martinelli's not as good without Jesus in the team. At this level, you cannot be that fragile as a player in terms of what means a good performance versus, consistently below par performances. One player, Mikel Arteta, Gabriel Martinelli, as well as Mikel Arteta and the coaching staff, the people that feed into this, the tactics that we're going to employ in games, are all better than that. That to let that render Martinelli sort of like toothless. I think you have to be able to adapt. And if what you're saying is true, Martinelli needs to get out of the team. then they need to know Martinelli only plays when Jesus plays. Otherwise, it's pointless. I mean, this is really not a case of me digging out Martinelli because I love him. I really do. One thing I really love about him is that even when he's not playing well, his off-the-ball work rate, his effort, the amount he tries, that never, ever dips. You see some people that hide or they don't try, and it's kind of like you can see that their head has dropped and they've been affected by it. Not with Martinelli. So I really love that about him. But I think, and I saw some people in the chat talking about Martinelli Trossard, I think it's a really valid conversation now. And there's a massive difference, pardon me, there's a massive difference between getting on the back of a player and saying, oh, he's playing crap now, I'm sick of him. We're not doing that. We're having that very difficult conversation that you want to have because you've got quality throughout the squad, where you turn around and say, is now the right time to lean on other quality. It's less about criticising Martinelli. It's more about recognising we've got good options on the bench in Leandro Trossard now. And, hopefully Emile Smith-Rowe isn't too far away as well, who can come in and add to that attacking sort of flair that we might have. But Martinelli, his performances are a concern for me.
Well, we do have to remember he's a young lad and he is going to have form. He dips, changes in form, and someone was talking about Saka a little while ago and his form's kicked up again. I'm sure Martinelli will come back, but yeah, I agree his form has dipped. I think having someone like Smith-Rowe back will help, especially in low blocks. He's someone that comes in late runs on the edge of the box, balls crossed back in. I think he would help. Before we go on, Cliff, thank you for your support. A win would be massive, he says, but the way we have been playing, I'll be happy with a draw, lads. Also, schoolboy defending cost us, not VAR. Hashtag clear the ball. Well, VAR did still cost us.
Yeah.
And one more. Perry, again, thank you again for your support, bro. Saliba is struggling. We need to put Gabriel, Ben White in central defence and Tomiyasu in at right back, Trossard in for wholesale changes here from Perry. So that was the question I was going to ask. There was another one that's contentious. I mean, White's form has dipped. Is there a case for Tomiyasu to start, bearing in mind Grealish is on top form at the moment? Tom.
I'm kind of with that one, I'm less inclined to make the change because ahead of this one, I'm less inclined to shake up the back four. I feel like if you were going to make Tomiyasu play, Brentford was the game to throw him into that one. Going into City, I'm less inclined to do that. So I'd stick with White. For me, the only one I would have a debate about changing is Martinelli. That's the only one in the team. I'd make that one little switch of the whole team. For me, it's White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko that start. And then you make your changes based upon what happens in the game. And I think that for me, Tomiyasu, I think, will become actually more so a left-sided option for us than the right side. I do think that Arteta will look to him more so as Zinchenko's potential rotational option because he plays that inverted role far better than Tierney does. And that's why he had the faith in him to play him against Liverpool and then played him in the subsequent games after that and did really well in that Liverpool game in particular. So I think that he will probably see it in that sense. And that's probably why we're seeing links to the likes of Ivan Fresneda and other right backs that we might be pursuing in the summer. So, but for this one, I'd keep the back four the same. And, when we played against City in the FA Cup, the immediate response, and my immediate response was to really criticise Holding's performance in that game. But in reality, it was kind of an interesting tactic that we used because we kind of used Holding as just this one-on-one, just unsettle Haaland. Just annoy him. Just get into him, be physical. You might lose a few balls. We might be exposed in a few opportunities. Very few teams are ever not exposed. And I think it was a really interesting way that we tackled Haaland. And I think it was only because Lokonga came on for Partey that we lost control of the middle third in that game.
But Holding went off at half time, didn't he? And he was on a yellow card.
I think it was more so losing Partey was the bigger factor as to why we lost control of the game, because at that point at half time, it was very even. The chance creation in both halves was pretty fair. But in the second half, when we lost control of the midfield with Partey going off, City it was just battle of attrition until they eventually got a goal, I felt, until obviously we made some change in the second half with Zinchenko and Martinelli coming on. But for me, it was interesting how we dealt with Haaland, and I'm interested to see how Saliba and Partey, when they're in the team at the same time, deal with him in Wednesday's game.
No, I'll be interested. I mean, there's some mad takes in this chat. Some are saying drop Saliba. Some are saying,
I don't know why. It's mad.
I mean, like the lad's been brilliant all season.
Yeah,
I mean, it's impossible to be perfect the entire season. And once someone's had one or two bad games, you pull them out.
Can we talk about the reaction? Quick, I know you like talking about the fans, Lev, as well. Because
go on.
I found it. I don't know about you two, but I found it incredibly frustrating to still see how much negativity and kind of cataclysmic thinking there is around Arsenal.
Yeah.
Like after the game against Brentford, I do a show over on the Arsenal Way, which is the channel I do for Football London, and the chat box was like, "We've blown it. We've lost. The league's done." Like, and I'm sitting there going, like, where does the joy in life come from for some people? Really? Because they go through an entire season that we've longed for, yearned for, us to be in a title race forever. And the first sign that they've got an excuse to be negative or to be, end of worldy about things, they take it immediately. Jump into YouTube, jump into chat boxes, jump into Twitter replies. We're this, we're that. We're going to lose this. We're going to blow it. We can't beat City. We can't do this. We're going to fail. What is it? Like, why? I don't know. Why are you like this?
Tom, look, this is not, I don't take it to heart. I think this is the psychology of a football fan. I've been going to Arsenal for so many years now. And one day it dawned on me. I thought to myself, of all of the minutes that I spend at games in the stadium, watching Arsenal, home, away, wherever it is, over the course of one season, how many of those minutes am I actually enjoying myself? And I've really thought about this. And the answer is tiny. At 0-0,
because of the season.
No, but think about it. At 0-0, you're desperate to score. At 1-0, you're scared of conceding. At 2-0, you're like, oh, if they concede, it's going to be a difficult 10 minutes. The referee winds you up. Every pass that you place correctly for your team, that's fine. That's normal. Every misplaced pass is like, crap. Every good thing the opposition do is like stressful. Everything that time they do something bad, that's like, fine. It's not going to stress me out. That's what you want to see. It's just like, the way it leans is like, it's very uncomfortable being a football fan. And then when you ramp up that into a title race, then it becomes even more pronounced. The only time I feel comfortable and I'm actually having a good time at a football game is when we're 3-0 up or 4-1. Only a 3-goal lead is enough for me to be like, this is fun. I'm enjoying it.
But you don't. After games, you don't turn around if we're 3, 5, 6, 8 points clear and say if we lose a game, you don't start turning around and saying we're going to blow it.
This ties into another part of that fan psychology that I was going to get onto. It's people think that fans don't ever want to be wrong. So, like, you get a lot of people saying like they'll make a prediction about I don't know a player.
Odegaard's going to be terrible. Who would say that?
Odegaard's going to be terrible, something like that. Yeah. And then they find it hard to be like, I was wrong. The one exception to that rule is when you predict your team's own doom. So fans never ever say, we're definitely going to win the league, because then you look like a mug when you don't. But it's much easier to manage your own emotions and be like, oh, we've blown it. And then, you're happy to be wrong in a way. So honestly, it's really, really weird. But I've been a football fan long enough to see it and find it quite funny, actually. The reality is, this team has put us in this position where we are now so flipping paranoid about everything because there's so much riding on it. It's this team. It's Saliba, who didn't have a good game last game. It's Zinchenko, who's been brilliant, who didn't have a good game last game. It's been all of these players that have done an amazing job. So is it really right as a manager to go in and say, Saliba, you're gone. Martinelli, you're gone. White, you're gone. Zinchenko, you're gone. Is it really right to do that? Or do you turn around and say to them, no, boys, I've still got faith in you. Yeah, we might make 1 or 2 changes. But overall, I've got absolute full faith in you. We just need to mix things up a little bit to make us a little bit less predictable because the last couple of games have struggled. Is that the right approach? Or is the right approach wholesale change and convey a message that you've lost faith in this team that has been the best team in the country? And I think when you frame the decision like that, you realise actually it starts to look a bit panicky, a little bit, scattergun if we go and change 4 players. as a
Well,
result.
I
of
think a
couple
lot of
bad
these fans
results.
that say this stuff, Mo, if we tuned in on Wednesday and there was no Saliba, there was no, I don't know, Zinchenko, no, I don't know, all these wholesale changes were made. A lot of these fans that are saying this now would be like, what the hell's going on? Why has he done this? I just don't buy it. And I think going back to what Tom was saying, I saw this video of an old Arsenal fan who's standing outside the ground after the game saying, I told you, I knew it. He's got no plan B, doesn't know what he's doing. And it's almost like these guys who were sort of going for Arteta earlier on have been hanging around in the background waiting to be proven right at some point so they could jump back out and say, I told you so. And that's what I don't understand. And I don't understand, you're right as well, Tom. We're fighting for the title here. Nobody thought we were going to be fighting for the title at the start of the season. We're fighting for the title, and now that's not even good enough. It's I just can't get my head around it.
You know, it's funny, like out of any game, you'll get a few like narratives that come out, right? And sometimes narratives contradict each other. And you kind of think to yourself, no, hold on a second, at least be consistent. So all of us are complaining about VAR, yeah? And we're saying that we lost this game because of VAR. How would we feel if we lose out on the league title by 1 point? We'd be livid because of that, right? Now, was it VAR or was it our players? And the reason I say that is because had VAR got it right and we won the game, would anyone be asking for 4 changes?
No, they wouldn't.
Exactly. So I think we need to pick and choose properly and stay consistent with that. The players weren't great, but they weren't also that bad that we need to go and make wholesale changes. The reason why we're kind of panicking is because of what happened in that VAR room. The players actually, if you want to be factual about it, they actually did enough to win the game, believe it or not. And that is the sign of a title-winning team, that you do enough even when you don't play well. So I'm sure, Tom said this. I saw him tweet it, and even Mikel Arteta said it. So I'm not sure who copied who, but it will be a completely different game against Man City. As a football fan, if you cannot figure that out for yourself, then honestly, you've got zero tactical awareness.
It's the case of like, if we can't beat Brentford, we've got no chance against City. Like that, that line just makes no sense. Just the last thing as well on the fan thing. Like, I think one of the biggest measures. I think you're right, and actually, Mo, you made a lot of great points, which I can hold my hands on and be like, you know what, fair enough on a lot of those. One thing I will say though is that, and I think, how long have we done this show together? Is it 2 seasons we've been running now? So we've gone from like 8th place, kind of staunch, like the biggest peak of Arteta out, you think, to where we are now is probably across this show. The chat box and who are in it has changed over that period of time.
Yeah, a lot of people I haven't seen anymore.
There are a lot of people we don't see anymore in the chat that were battering the manager, the club, the owners. And that's the issue that I have for people like Nick Parris in the chat, who I've disagreed with a lot throughout the entire listenership of this from 2 seasons ago. A lot of respect for Nick, because whilst I don't agree with a lot of his points, he's still here raising his points. But there are a lot of people that aren't, that just can't, that could not hack the idea of, oh crap, I really abused Arteta in the past with some of these comments, or I just overreacted with some of my comments, but I can't face the music now. Things are going. That's the issue I have with the aspect of some supporters, is you got to be able to hold your hand up. God knows I have a million. I've got loads of things wrong. I wanted Arteta out at one point when we lost to Villarreal. How stupid do I look now? And I'm happy because we're smashing it. You've got to face the music at the end of the day, and that's, I think, the big tell.
Another question I want to ask you guys, if you don't mind, Lev.
Go on.
The disallowed goal for that Brentford had disallowed. Was that correctly disallowed, or did Arsenal get lucky?
What, the one where it was deemed a foul?
Was it Mbeumo and Saliba?
Soft, very soft.
Yeah, the one where he's pulled Gabriel. That one.
Oh no, it was Gabriel. Yeah.
Do you think the only thing that saved Gabriel in that is the tugging of the shirt?
Yeah, the shirt pull.
It was the shirt pull. If it wasn't for the shirt pull, I would have said he's just got out muscled there. He done a typical Gabriel where he tried to be, should we say, incisive and get there first, and he just got out muscled. And I think he was quite lucky. But yeah, in the letter of the law, it was a foul due to the.
It's funny because Ash Ash in the chat has said disallowed goal was a soft foul, 50-50 decision in real time. People comparing it to the VAR have lost their minds. So, yeah, in terms of the level of that mistake, or if it was a mistake, there's no comparison. But in terms of the outcome, well, it's directly comparable. It's just one goal. But I was surprised about the fallout of that because I thought it was a foul. I thought he got out muscled because he got his shirt pulled. Simple as that.
Well,
So,
one
that's
thing-
what your take on it.
Because like I thought it was soft because of kind of it just looks like Gabriel just loses his foot in a bit in that sense. But obviously in the replays, you see the shirt pull, and I think he gets away with it. Do you remember when we played City last year at home and when we conceded that penalty with Xhaka and Bernardo Silva? I thought that was soft. But the reason they gave it was because you could evidently see Xhaka pulling the shirt of Bernardo Silva. And I think this is kind of that, but the other way around. But because they saw the shirt pull and he blew up for a foul, if say he hadn't have pulled, say if like they went through and scored and then the whistle went to blow for the foul and they went back over VAR, I think they would have still ruled it out because the ref didn't. So if it's a case of if he sees it, the VAR is not going to change it. It's that weird. They have to have made a clear and obvious error, which obviously
that's open to interpretation. But an offside is either offside or it isn't.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. So it's not comparable in that aspect. But in real time, I didn't think it was a foul. When they showed it and you saw the actual pull, then you could say, yeah, that was a foul. That's where I stand with that. But we've been going for just over an hour and 10 minutes, so we've got to wrap up. But what we haven't done is the crucial predictions for this massive game. So I've got to go first because, like Arsenal, I'm top of the league still. So I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal.
That's the scoreline, isn't it? Is it me next or is it you, Mo? Are you now second?
Yeah, you're right. I am. Well, here's my theory on Arsenal versus Man City.
You get a theory first.
If Arsenal can maintain what we're doing and actually be a real contender for the next few seasons, if Mikel Arteta can really make this stick rather than us kind of bouncing, in and out of the top four, this is going to be, in my opinion, the most boring, technical, tactical rivalry that the top of the Premier League has ever seen. Honestly, I think it's going to be so dull when Arsenal play Man City. It's a boxing terminology, styles make fights. And the two styles between Arsenal and Man City when they come up against each other is just, honestly, that was you're talking about Rob Holding versus Haaland in the FA Cup game. That was the most interesting thing about that game for me. Otherwise, it's dull. It's so technical.
You're really selling this, Mo.
They're so tactically aware. They cancel each other out so well that honestly, I like Man City Liverpool games because there's two completely different styles in that game. I like watching Man City Man United because it's that rivalry, that derby. Arsenal Tottenham again, that fire of rivalry and derby. There's no fire. There's no real animosity between the teams. There's not even individual players that have got a history between them that you look out for. It's just technical, boring, tactical football that is going to end 0-0 on this occasion.
After that huge build-up.
Waiting for it.
But let me say, I love the fact that Arsenal are part of that because that is what football is these days. That is the top level of modern football, that tactical awareness, that technical brilliance that, when you come up against another team with that level of game management and football awareness, unfortunately, it doesn't make for a good game, but we need to be there. Otherwise, you get beaten by these teams.
So there you go. Mo with a huge build-up. Looking forward to the game now. I'm sure you are, all of you, for Wednesday. He's gone for a bore draw. Tom, what's your thoughts?
It's difficult to disagree with Mo's theory.
I could be wrong. It could be 5-4 Arsenal.
It's the brilliance of football. Everything he said makes sense. And still in my head, I think again back to that game that we played against them last season where we came out of the blocks rapid and we bossed that first half against them last year. And I'm really hoping, and I think they will be absolutely fired up for this. I think just ignore all the games that have gone before because they will have forgotten them for this one. And Arteta won't let them go out there without. I think against Brentford, they were thinking about this game. and that was a bit of a problem. But this is the game, and we have been asked so many questions this season. Palace away, can you do that? Yep. Spurs away, can you do that? Yep. Can you beat Man United? Yep. Can you go to Chelsea and win again? Yep. We've been asked so many questions and answered them. This is the big question, the biggest question. And I'm just hoping that we have the answer. And I feel as though we have the players to do it. I'm buzzing to see what Zinchenko does in this, because I think he's really rattled by how City treated him. You see Kyle Walker and all that playing funny with him,
weren't they? Yeah.
I think he would. I was nearly swore then. He would effing love to win this. He would really love to win this game.
Keegan vibes.
Yeah, it is Kev Keegan. It is proper.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it if we beat them. Like, it's proper Zinchenko. That will be what he's like. Yeah. So they're going to be fired up. They will going to be fired up in terms of City as well. Rodri, I'll tell you, is one of those players to watch out for. He loves these types of games.
He was brilliant against Villa.
He was brilliant against Villa, and he was brilliant against us last season as well. And yeah, again, he's kind of pinnacle of a DM. I'd love to see at Arsenal, but I think that with all of that, I will go nil. No, I will go for a 3-1 Arsenal win.
Wow.
God, that would be incredible. Can you imagine the atmosphere if we get that?
I think it's going to be fun. I think they're going to just go toe to toe. I really think both will go to win this game.
Yeah, but no doubt they're going to go toe to toe. But what we're talking about when we're talking about toe to toe is two Mayweathers. It's going to be so boring. It's not going to be two Ricky Hattons, is it?
I don't know.
I don't think it's going to be boring.
I don't think it's going to be boring. It's too tense to be boring. Even if it was the most boring game in the world, the result itself makes it so tense that you can't relax. So, I'm just hoping it's gonna be a great game that we win, and this could be the game that puts Arsenal back on track and gives them their belief back after that result against Everton and the poor draw against Brentford. If we beat City, it could just be what turns everything around for us and makes us believe that this is our year. So, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes now, so we're about to wrap up. Everyone in the chat, thank you for joining us. Please smash the likes if you haven't done so already. Let us know in the comments what you think the lineup will be and how do you think the game will go and what the result prediction. And that's it, Mo. Anything you want to add before we let you go? We can find Mo at Arsenal Mo8, and you can also find him at his after the games. Your 5. What's it?
The match reaction after the game, within an hour of the full-time whistle, and then the next day at 5 p.m, 5 at 5.
5 at
so
5.
Pick them out, and I'm going to end with a question and just a one-word answer. Everyone in the chat, please, one-word answer, and you both. We'll start with Mr. Top of the League himself, Lev. Man City on Wednesday, Trossard or Martinelli?
I'd go Trossard, because I think Martinelli could be a great impact later on.
We can't do one-word answers. We just don't do them. We just can't do them.
I'm Cypriot. I don't know what that is. It's not in my life. It's not.
Right, Trossard from Liv.
Trossard,
Yeah, Trossard as well.
People in the chat seeing Trossard must start against Man City. Trossard, Martinelli, Trossard. More Trossards. It seems like more Trossards.
Yeah, I mean, Martinelli will make a great impact sub when everyone's tired, won't he? So, let's see how it goes. But look, Wednesday's the time. Keep your eye out for notifications for any more shows coming up. We'll be doing this again on Monday. I'll make sure I'll get these guys back in. That's it, guys. So Wednesday, let's hope, fingers crossed, we remain top of the league and with 3 extra points a gap. Tom, anything else you would like to add before we go?
No, just obviously I'll be live tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. as always. And it's been a pleasure, as it always is.
Excellent. So this has been the Arsenal Lounge. Hopefully we've gone through everything for you and we're out of here tonight. Have a good evening. Take care. Oh, let me get this thing up as well. There you go.
You forgot to end.